The question being, what makes a professional VR esports player, I think is a really interesting one. I think it's one that you will find a lot of people with a lot of different answers with this. I think you kind of mentioned a couple there, just a couple off the top of my head being natural ability, time commitment, various things. I think what it comes down to is people wanting to play this game or any VR esport title, because I think you'll find this with any natural like kind of athlete in any traditional sport, is that a good football player is a good football player because he absolutely loves the game, and they love the game that they play, and they love it to the point that they spend so much time playing that game, not because they want to get good at it, although that might be a side factor, but because they enjoy it and they actually like kind of love it, and they're kind of becoming good at it as part and parcel with that. So I think really a lot of the time it's the actual passion for the game itself is what makes pro players, because it's the people that kind of enjoy, that will be staying up till like 2-3 o'clock in the morning playing pub matches, scrims, whatever, in any VR esport title. Really, it's not just specific to Echo, but I think I don't know too many communities that are as passionate about about the game as a lot of Echo players. But I think it's really passion is a huge part of it, and I think that if you speak to any Echo Arena player about, or Echo Combat player, or anyone really that plays in Echo, about what they think about the game itself, you will hear nothing but roaring reviews. And that's because a lot of people, and I think myself included in this, feel like Echo is, as an example, is kind of the first step into virtual sport, because it feels and plays like a sport for so many people. And I think that passion drives a lot of the top players. And I think for anyone that's kind of just getting into Echo Arena now, and wants to kind of get good at it, I think two things to remember is one, to love the game. I think is anyone's thinking about getting into VR esports or getting into esports in general, you've got to enjoy what you're doing, right? Because if you're not enjoying it and you're not having fun, then it's hard to justify the time you put to it. Because I think for a lot of, for example, I know a couple of our players, it's like Boot Viatrex, they don't play because they have to compete in the world finals. They play because they love Echo Arena. Like, that's the thing. Like, they don't, being good at it and actually winning games is like it doesn't matter at the end of the day. It's like a secondary thought. It's like, right, oh great, we won a game. Oh, we won this thing. It's like, cool, we just wanted to go and play, and we wanted to play the best we could. Like, that's like, for every world final we've been to, every single time our goal has just been to play the best we know we can, because as far as we're concerned, we enjoy the game so much, that's really our only goal. And I think that a lot of people you'll find will have the same mentality. So really enjoy it, make it enjoyable as well. Every time I come back and get into the game, because I'm usually at the moment, it's because I'm spectating the team's matches to commentate, like to give them feedback and to do training with them. And every time I jump in, I'm like, oh, I remember this. Damn, I missed it. And it's just because it's so fun. And I think, to be honest, for me personally, I think this is why VR esports is so special, is because the games and the communities around the games are just, you literally couldn't find them anywhere else in the world. Because it is the combination of having a sport that you can only play locally, but removing all the local barriers. So you get people from all walks of life, all around the world, playing together. Like, for me, I would never have met Viatrex or Affen or Boop. Very, very unlikely I would have met any of them had I done anything else but Echo. But like, we've kind of built up an incredible team of people, and it's just been kind of a pretty crazy turn of events. But it all comes from enjoying the same thing, and I think it all comes from enjoying the same game. And I think, again, as I said, Echo is a good example of that. But I think onward, you'll find this with every single one. And if you ask any of the top teams, I'm almost certain they will all tell you they just love the game. Like, they love the game. The competitiveness is like an extra thing. But when it comes down to it, they just enjoy the game. And I think it's because VR is such a different level of social activity, gaming, competitiveness. It for me, it's incomparable. Like, there's almost nothing I can think of that compares to this in terms of the ability to have fun and play. Like, I love this as like a sport as well. This is just my dream, because I've got a bit of a sporty background, and I love the kind of the more sports angle. So Echo Arena is perfect for me. I think it's a lot for the other people, but there are other games like Onward where it's like kind of the next level of first-person shooters, and it's just incredible to see the communities that have spawned out of it. But from my perspective, really, And for when I'm looking at other teams in different games as well, it's people that love what they do, really, because those are the ones that will be putting in godsend hours, not because they have to, but because they want to, because they enjoy the game they
Right.
play. And when it comes down to the whole being good at something, a master at something has put in 1,000 or has tried something, tried and failed 1,000 times more than the novice has ever tried. So it's one of those things that there's time commitment is there, but I think being a good player is all about enjoying a game and actually being able to play it and playing it a lot. And I think that's the other thing. There's some things like natural talent that come into it, which decide, I'd say, like where in the top like percent you could like land. But really, I think, especially with where VR esports is now, you don't have to have, because if you look at traditional esports and you look at a lot of the top players in a lot of different games, they will not only love the game and be as passionate as anyone else about it, but they will also have like natural talent checked off. They'll
Right.
have like reaction time, aid. I mean, there's loads of different things that play into it. But I think what's great about VR esports is right now is that you only really need the passion, because there aren't enough players or teams. And this isn't necessarily a bad thing, because it means the communities we've got are really close knit, and
Right.
it's a really kind of great situation to be in. But a lot of those tick boxes you don't necessarily have to get filled in order to make some of the biggest events in the world, which is crazy, right? Like there's so other few industries or like esport games or titles that are out there right now where you don't have to have every single one of those ticked. So really, right now, it's an opportunity that anyone could become a pro player in any VR esport title, and it wouldn't be a shock to anyone. Because if you love the game and you play it enough and you get good at it, whether or not you're 40, whether or not you're 16 and just getting into like gaming or whatever,
Right.
like you've got a chance and you can do it. And it's all just about it's about enjoying it and like kind of getting involved and taking as it comes, really. But yeah, there's not really that gate to entry that there is in a lot of either traditional sports, where there's a lot of framework and structure around getting better, and there's so many people, the competition is ridiculous, or esports where it's kind of it's a growing industry, so there's a very you have to tick these boxes off, and coaches know what to look for to
Right.
tick all those boxes off. But right now there isn't that, so it's a free it's the Wild West at the moment. So really right now anyone can really get into it. They just have to love what they do and get involved and play it, and just play it as much as they want to, because if you end up playing something for so long and you end up getting tired of it, take a break. It's not the end of the world, and a lot of pro players do the same thing. And I think really what makes pro is just kind of the continual want to improve as well, I guess. But that comes as part of enjoying a game. Like I only ever wanted to get better at Echo because I liked Echo, never because I wanted to get like I wanted to play professionally or like have it as a title or whatever. It's just
Right.
because I wanted to get better at the game, and it's just like because you love the game that much. So I think that's really it. So for anyone that's got like a huge passion for it, I'd say yeah, massive, like go for it, because there's a huge amount of opportunity right now.
Yeah, I think the same thing with what you were just saying about Echo Combat, that I wasn't thrilled with a few things when it first came out. I was actually quite
Yeah,
very frustrated, and but I love the game so much. Like I love the movement for Echo VR in general. I love the way it
yeah,
feels. I really like, I liked the concept of shooting people instead of punching them, and so I just honestly, that also came in a little bit of what came into play was just a faith in the devs that the few things that I had
yeah,
concerns about or that were problematic for me when that game was first released, that they would fix those things, and they did. And so, I
yeah,
think that VR is still so new that one of the things that's awesome is the communities are close knit, like you say, but we also are, most of the VR communities also have relationships with the developers. And so
yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah,
it's great that they listen to our feedback. A cool factor too that we have being in on the beginnings of this
yeah.
industry, because we can help influence how it will impact people in the future, which is really cool.
Yeah, yeah. I think, yeah. It's kind of crazy. I mean, for me personally, because we build VR applications as well, and I've kind of followed VR industry since the DK1, like when I backed on Kickstarter. So
Right.
from the very beginning, and for me, I think the Echo Arena, the Echo VR movement system is for me one of the craziest concepts that has just been executed so perfectly. I mean,
Yes.
it really is. It's kind of disgusting, because it's one of those things that you feel like there is. I cannot think of a single better movement system that has been implemented within VR like at all. There is
Right. I
literally
agree.
this is as far as I'm concerned with every single VR app I've tried, and I've lost count how many at this point over the last five
Yeah.
however many years. The movement system in Echo is just like it can't be beaten, and because of its 1-to-1 movement ratio and the whole concept that we work by a lot of the time, which is rather than kind of trying to work around the limitations of VR, playing to its strengths of 1-to-1 body positioning and like hand movements and head movements and all the rest of it, and using those and making the most of those rather than like kind of actually trying to, I don't know, put an analog stick movement to kind of make up for the fact that you can't walk around and things like that. And I think Echo does that in a wider space better than anything else. And I think
Right.
the only other games that are competing with it in terms of quality of like movement systems and all the rest of it is really games that are like don't have movement at all, like Beat Saber, for example, where there's you don't move around, you're
Yeah.
stationary, and it's because again Beat Saber just goes, okay, well we can't move people around without making it without kind of removing that level of kind of immersiveness. So let's just keep them there. They don't need to move. Like you can do a
Right.
stationary experience. It's absolutely fine. And I think Echo is like the opposite, polar opposite of that. It was like we need movement everywhere, but we need to do it in a way that like works perfectly. And I think that's what Echo does so well. And I think for me, like having a disc to put in a goal is like such a fantastic part of that. But at the same time, it's just that movement in and of itself. I just love it because it is just such a simple but perfect solution to movement in VR, and it just works. And that's, I think for me, that's one of the reasons why I love Echo so much, just because it's natural. And this is why I think it feels like a sport, because you don't have to second guess yourself in any of your thing, because the whole thing is when you're playing a sport, a lot of the things you do come down to muscle memory. And if you're thinking about something, then it means you're not thinking about the strategy or thing you should be doing
Right.
as like a professional player. So for example, if I'm thinking about, right, I need to let go of this, I need to grab this, or I need to move around like this, like that's filling up brain space that I need to be putting to other things, right? So I think that's why I love Echo so much, because it's so quick to put the movement system into the muscle memory part of your brain, where you just do it naturally. It's just a perfectly natural system. It really just, I think for any new player, it will take about a week. If someone plays Echo for a week and then they will just be a natural for it for years to come. And it's just it's kind of mad that it's that intuitive, that it's actually more intuitive than a lot of real life processes, which is really strange, because you get kids that, this is why kids are so quick at adopting it, because with a lot of kids, they're in a position where they are mentally growing and they're actually kind of adapting to systems that are being put in front of them. And that's why kids pick up VR so quickly and so well, because this is a new system with new laws, and their brains just like get onto it, and it's so intuitive and how it does it. I think it's just, yeah. So the movement system for me is a huge part of Echo, but yeah, it's pretty crazy.
I think that's part of the reason that I actually picked it up very, very quickly and so well, you know, because I played in the first season of VR League, but because I never had played games before. I had never done video games.
Yeah,
so
exactly. You don't need to. This is what's great. Coming back to the whole VR esports aspect of it, I think that as you say, it's so quick and easy for people to pick up, and I think you combine that with the fact that there's so much opportunity right now within VR esports. I think this is why, like, I love it so much, because and I think this is why I personally, before I even knew about the VR League getting announced, back in way before season 1, when the game literally just came out of beta, I think I was beyond excited, because after I started playing, you can't realize the potential of it. And I remember, it's like, it's so hard now, because it's like remembering back and kind of trying to think about how you felt at the time. And I just remember feeling so much excitement about what this was and what it meant and what the competitive scene of this would mean and how that would apply to it's absolutely mind-boggling. So I mean, I think coming back to the whole anyone can really pick this up, I think that the combination of that plus the combination of not having to understand games, like you don't need to be a gamer for this. You could be coming from a complete novice background with no understanding of what gaming is, or just someone that's played sport for some of their life, and you could get into this and become a pro. Like that's a totally like understandable and reasonable thing. Like it's like, it wouldn't be that surprising. I mean, that's what's crazy to me, is that we've got this scene right now where literally anyone can come up and compete in it and do well. They've just got to love the game. And I mean, once you get into it, you'll know whether or not you love it or not. And I think for a lot of people, they love it. I mean, that's why we've got so many like great communities and people that play on a literal daily basis, that kind of, this is their staple thing. They do, like every evening they will jump on and play some Echo Arena or Echo Combat. And it's what happens. And it's crazy to me as well, if you think about how much playtime goes into these games from the people that love it, comparative to, I'd say, a lot of gaming, kind of a lot of other games, and how if you look at if you were to look at Echo Arena, for example, a game that hasn't had much change happen to it over probably about a 2 year period, almost 2 years, a year and a half. If you were to compare that to any other normal 2D game in terms of the player count and kind of the actual replayability of it, it's crazy. Like the amount of hours spent by people in the game now versus a year ago hasn't dropped dramatically, and that's, I think the point being there is that even though it hasn't had patches, which is what keeps a lot of 2D games afloat, is like the constant rate of change, and that's how they update the competitive scene.
Yes.
But it hasn't needed that, and I think this again points to how it is a sport, and that's such an amazing take on sport, because sport in football, the rules don't change every week, but that doesn't
Right.
change its replayability, right? It's still, you can still go on a football pitch and it's just as fun playing it one week to the next. It doesn't change at all. And I think this is why Echo Arena is so unique in that, and it's unlike so many other games in that even without that change, it's able to sustain itself as a sport. And I think that's what, for me, I think the fact that it kind of is more of a sport than it is a game in and of itself, even though obviously it fits into the gaming category. But I think this is, for me, I think that's why it's so unique and special. And then tying that with the movement system and then the competitive scene, it's a perfect storm, really, I feel like. There's a really good reason behind the really high retention rate, is because once you, I wouldn't say necessarily because anyone getting involved in pubs, for example, just coming in and playing the game from pubs, it's kind of a vastly different game from like having the competitive background that like kind of the communities and scrims have. So I would really suggest like anyone that's interested in getting into this esports side of it, or wants to keep playing and loves the game, but can't necessarily get the games that they want to play, just to kind of further themselves, because I know that can be a frustration for new players that are like, oh, I love this game so much, I want to keep getting better at this, but I feel like I'm being limited because I can't do the things I want to do with like team play and stuff. And that's where I'd say like that's where the community step in, and that's where they are so important, and why VR esports having those great communities is such an important thing, because that's where it gives you that next step. And I think that once people kind of get indoctrinated, essentially, or kind of end up part of one of these communities, you don't leave. Like, it's just not because they try and keep you there, but because it's such a conducive environment to play and make the use out of what you've got, essentially. It's that kind of inquisitive mentality as well, which I think makes up a lot of the pro players, because there are a few pro players who would not hear a cool, interesting strategy and be like, "Oh my god, I have to try this." Like there is almost no pro player that wouldn't be like, isn't trying to figure stuff out and be like, "What could I have done that?" or "Could we have done this?" or like it's just, and I think that is also another big good sign of people that but that comes kind of from loving the game as well.
Yes.
And it's like, you love the game, so you want to get better, and in doing so you basically start asking questions like, oh, could I have done this better, could I change this, or could I have done this? And like that's getting better. That's literally how you get better at these games. And I think that people that do that and continually do that just naturally get better. And I think as well, because the communities are so small, and this is kind of comes into the whole opportunity thing with VR esports right now, is that you just need to keep doing that. Just keep doing it, and you will naturally find the people that are good at the game. You'll naturally find people that you can play with, and then you eventually end up in a professional team flying out to events around the world. That's literally how it happens. It's how it's happened for every team in the last 2 seasons of VR League. That's just what happens. You just play, and then, oh look, okay, I enjoy playing this. Let's try and play together. And then it's like you find other people with a similar mindset, and then you just, one thing leads to another, and the next thing you're flying out to OC5 to play on a stage in front of thousands of people. It's crazy, but that's how it works. And for me, for someone that's followed esports, traditional esports, for so long, like, just to find myself at the end of it looking back and be like, huh, this happened, is such a strange feeling. But I don't think it would have happened in anything else. I honestly don't think I ever would have got good enough at sport to be able to do it. I don't think I ever would have got good enough at gaming to be able to do it. But VR esports is just, it's so different and unique that by just having that inquisitive and passionate mentality, you achieve so much. Personally, I love playing, but at the same time, I also appreciate that kind of I've got some skills that help promote VR esports in a better direction.
Yes.
So I think that's why I wanted to do that, because although I love the game, I think I love the idea of it succeeding even more than it is doing right now,
Right.
even more than playing, if you see what I mean, because I love it that much. I will put it ahead of my own.
Yeah, I would love to play
yeah.
competitively again, but it's much more important that it succeed as an industry than that I get to play competitively. And so I think
Yeah,
you're
and
in the same position.
I think it's, again, it's like, it's coming back to the whole passion thing. It's like your passion for example, like Arena in this instance, can come out in different ways. I mean, my way, it's kind of come out in that I want to promote it and more to
Right.
get more people to play it, because I had so much fun getting into it and playing it. Then I want more people to do the same, because I know the more people that do it, the more things we'll be able to do, the more cool things and events we'll be able to run,
Right.
the more people we can engage with, and more people I can get to play with. I think it's that weird cycle. I think I found an outlet for that outside of just, yeah, exactly. I found an outlet for outside of playing, which is kind of the coaching and managing and the team gravity side of things, and I can help players in doing so. So that's why I've kind of done that. Yeah, I mean, we haven't got an Echo Combat team just yet. We've got Flush who's going to be captaining it, and then we've got our Echo Arena team, and I'm basically coaching / kind of like looking after them essentially. We've also got our 2 Beat Saber players that joined us as well recently, so they've also been kind of calling, who joined us pretty recently, and then Flush, not Flush, Orange, who have all been great. So we're looking forward to more of things as they come, really. For me, I think looking out to what's going to be hopefully coming on the horizon with season 3, which I think everyone's now waiting with bated breath, because I think we're 2 months into 2019. It's been about 4 months since OC5, I think. So everyone's kind of getting a little bit jittery, like kind of chomping at the bit, like we want to play some competitive games, because I mean, we've got some fantastic community cups and stuff that happen at the moment, but I think when you've got an overarching season like the Premier League, equivalent to the Premier League or whatever, it's a slightly different tinge to it in terms of how it plays out and feels. So I think that's for a lot of the players that got into professional play, like the Arena guys, that's kind of the drug that gets you keep coming back to pro play. It's like once you get into that competitive, like heart racing, those kind of cups that like where everything's on the line. Do I go out to the next LAN event? Do I not go out to the next LAN event? Like all of that stuff is like, I mean, that's happened to me like literally twice when I was playing like the first and second season. There were 2 times where if we had not scored a single goal, I would have not flown out to a LAN event, which is crazy, because it's like stuff like that, having that kind of thing on the line, which is a bit mad. But I think we're really excited for season 3. Just in general, I'm excited to see where it goes. I think that a lot of things have been learned from the last 2 seasons by both ESL and Oculus, from either the events or the organizing it and everything else. So I think we're hopefully, touch wood, going to see a more, I want to say, kind of fluid season, less hiccups, less kind of big boo-boos, and just it all just kind of flowing, hopefully, as well as possible. I think that's the goal. But I think at the same time, they've learned a lot in terms of how best to grow games and communities as well, which I think I'm really happy about. And I think that's also something that's been picked up over the last 2 seasons, because even Oculus and ESL at this point are learning still about with VR esports as well. It's so new that it's hard to kind of fault them on getting some things wrong or getting them right, and it's you can't really pinpoint or say it's anyone's fault. So I think it's really, I'm glad that, actually, to us, I'm kind of glad some things have gone wrong in the past, because it means that we're going to be so much better going forwards, which is a really good thing, because it's not like anyone that's involved within the industry right now not to learn from mistakes. So it's actually a really good thing that things have happened. So I'm hoping for a kind of a smooth season, smooth sailing. Even the things like I think it was IEM last year when we were playing there at the first World Finals in season 1. Even things like one of the main issues we had was actually IR interference, which was having there's so many people's, so like literally this would not happen for anything else but VR. There were just so many people walking around the arena, walking around the space with phones, lights, signals. It basically ruined the tracking, and it wasn't a massive issue. It was just, but when you're talking about the pro play, the movements that they make are so minute that just to have the tracking to cut out for a couple of seconds can completely demolish plays and strategies. And there's things like that that you wouldn't have known until we've done it.
Exactly.
You don't know until it goes live. So I think this is what I mean. There are things that happened over the last 2 seasons which we've learned a lot from. It's gone a lot better. Season 2 was so much better than season 1 in terms of just everything was just so much better. So fingers crossed it's going to be the same for season 3. Excited for it. hoping to see more games and stuff like that involved as well, because we had a couple of new additions last year with Onward, for example. I think it's been great. Onward has been a fantastic addition to the VR League, so I'm hoping to see more games like that. Obviously, Echo Combat's just come in this season, which is going to be great to see how that develops as well. But yeah, just generally excited for smooth and more games. That's what we're excited for, yeah.